In the previous video, we took a look at embedding a Tableau dashboard with the JavaScript API. What we did is we created an HTML file and we also created a JavaScript file, and we combined the two, and then we were able to render a Tableau dashboard in our web page. Now, this is the dashboard that we created. So we can see the actual dashboard showing up here. However, there's a little bit of a problem that we have, and that is, if I go to my example here in Tableau Public, is that this dashboard not only has the map that we also see in our page, it also has the bar chart and the filters. Now, this is something that I realized when we started building this, and this doesn't happen too often, but it doesn't load everything here. That's probably because of the sizing of the actual element. So what we can do is we can actually set some properties on in the options object here to tell it what are the actual sizes that we want to use. So we can set the width and the height of the actual viz in here. Now, that is a good start to actually take a bit of a better look at the documentation. So if I go in here was the documentation, and we go here to the particular page called reference. And this is where you can see all of it tells us here, the classes and the methods of the JavaScript API. This kind of tells you what you can do and what is possible with the API. Now, if you're new to JavaScript, then a lot of these things don't make sense to you immediately, but that doesn't matter, because when you're learning, you of course start realizing and recognizing a lot of these things as well. So what we have here, if I scroll a little bit further down on the right hand side, actually we have kind of an index page, a table of contents, which is quite useful. And we also have this top class diagram here. And this tells us what we basically can access from our Tableau workbook and how to access it. So the very first thing here is the Viz Manager, and on the Viz Manager class, we have a Viz class. So Viz is what we have here. So new Tableau that initializes a Tableau instance, and on there we have an object, a class called Viz. And what we can then do is we can, for example, get the workbook. So getting the workbook basically means getting the data about the workbook, so the title, for example, or the URL, and kind of lots of metadata. Then on the actual workbook, we also have the getActiveSheet method. So that basically means what sheet is currently active in the browser. And then you can see lots of other things like the actual dashboard, the story, etc. So that can help you with doing certain things with this API. Now, if we scroll further, we can see some more information about that it's using promises, which is great. Now, we also have the error codes here. So if you run into any errors while embedding, you can see some of the most common error messages that show up. So if we scroll a little bit further, we now have the Viz Manager. And in here, we can see that we had this constructor function. So that's what I used earlier, and I just copied it. We just rewrote it from the example of basic embed. But here we have the Viz class, and Viz needs a DOM node, which is this container div, which relates to something on the web page, the URL, which is a string, which is correct, and you can pass it some options. And those options are the ones that we are interested in, because we want to resize our dashboard. So if we scroll a little bit further, we can see, okay, these are like the methods that are possible on the actual Viz. But now here we can see the Viz create options. So it defines options that are specified. So those are the ones that we see here on the left-hand side in my options. So what I can do is it tells me first the name and what data type it needs to be. So here we can see hide tabs is a bool, and we already passed it true, so that means we want to hide it. Now again, in Tableau Public hiding the toolbar, for example, is not possible, but in Tableau Server and Tableau Online that is. Now, if we scroll a little bit further, we can see the height and the width here. So We can set this to whatever we want. So if we go to my dashboard and we set, first of all, let's set a height and let's set that to 800. Make sure you put a comma at the end. And if you then hit save, you will see that it starts resizing this one. Now, if we then do width as well, and let's set width also to 800. There we go. So now you can see we almost have the same dashboard. We have the map followed by our bar chart here, but we're still missing kind of the filters. So let's make our dashboard a little bit wider. So let's set this to say 1000 and I'm hitting save. And now we can see the dashboard nicely shows up. So we have the map, here we have the map and the bar chart and the filtering. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation and see what else we can do. So we can set the height, we can set the width. Another thing that is really interesting is the device. So what Tableau is doing by default is if I open this website on my mobile device, it automatically shows me the phone layout. Okay? So if not specified, it defaults to loading a layout based on the smallest dimension of the hosting iframe. So the iframe in this case will be very small, of course, if you have a phone. So it will show you the phone layout. But you can also pass that function in if you want. So I can go here and I can say device. Now I'm not certain if I actually created a really nice mobile layout, but I can say mobile. And then I can close it off. And now it will start rendering. Yeah, I didn't really do anything with mobile. So you can see it doesn't render any mobile. But we can also set desktop. And then it will render the desktop. Now I didn't set any mobile or desktop. I think I just used the default one. So that's why it doesn't render it. But if you have any of those device specific layouts, you can use those in here as well. Now, other things, we can set filtering. So that means the moment someone opens up the dashboard, it starts filtering. On first interactive here, that is one we already have. And this says that it's a callback. Now a callback is a function. So here we can see on first interactive, when that happens, it executes this particular function. And it basically logs, hey, my dashboard is ready. Now, what we can do is, for example, we also have on first interactive, but we also have on first size known. So what we could do, for example, we can say, hey, my dashboard is interactive. And we also have on first size known. So I'm just like copy that over. The first time when it knows the size, so it tells us here, a function that's invoked when the size of the Viz object is known. And this is quite useful if you, for example, have other elements on your web page that depend on the Viz to render. So for example, imagine you have some buttons at the bottom or on the side of the Viz. You don't want them jumping all over the page. So you can say on first size known, you can here, for example, render your buttons again or show your buttons if you hide them at first. Now I can just say console.log here and I can say, hey, my dashboard has a size. If I then go back to my dashboard here and there we go, refresh it. If I then go inspect it, what we'll see is in the console is that, hey, my dashboard has a size. So that one's being kicked off first. So you can see that one's logging first, followed by, hey, my dashboard is interactive. So they have different purposes. So if you, for example, want to resize objects on the page, you should use on first size known. And on first interactive, you can, for example, set some filtering or something. That's also possible. Okay. Now, in the next video, we'll take a look at how to use some buttons on the web page and how to interact with the visualization in that way.